Oh, wow, that one, it worked this time. Okay, folks, we are live. I'm just going to start the recording and then it's all yours, President Rudley. Okay, Illy, I'm gonna make you the host and it's all yours.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the April 14th, 2020 special meeting of the Ossining Board of Education. We're now going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask if Greg will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and Illy will be putting up the image of our flag.
Am I going to see a flag or should I just start?
No, it's working. Just, you got it. Illy,
Okay.
You got it?
I see you, but
Illy, you got to unmute.
oh.
There we go.
Okay,
Ooh. All right, I pledge allegiance
to the flag
Flag, the United
of the
States of
United
America,
States of America,
and to the republic,
public
for which it stands,
stands
one
one
nation
nation, under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty
liberty,
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all. Thank you, Greg. And I'd like to take this opportunity to have a moment of silence for all the lives that have been lost through this really, really hard time, and for all that are suffering, and to also honor all the people that are on the front lines. So if you would join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay. Illy, if you would please show the agenda.
Do you see it?
Not yet. Okay, there it goes. Okay. Okay, great. And then we're now moving into our agenda item, which is school and budget update. And I'm going to give this over to Dr. Sanchez to give us, and the cabinet to give us an update. Okay.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Right.
Illy, you have control of the slides, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want me to pull them up?
Yeah, if you don't mind, we'll get started.
Okay.
We're going to use the PowerPoint to give updates. All right, so good evening to the board and to community members that are watching. We thought this was, obviously we've made edits to our agenda and the topics that we're discussing, albeit the budget has always been on the timeline of items to discuss during this period of time. But we thought we'd give you an update on the coronavirus, but more specifically to how it's impacting our schools now and some future thinking that we have. And then I'm going to turn it over to a colleague, to Alita Zuber, our Assistant Superintendent for Business, to share just some general update items relative to the budget. So, Billy, do you want to go to the next slide? So first of all, and I think we always need to begin here, is with a sincere thank you to our community, to our educators that are working, diligently every single day, learning this new environment of teaching, and working hard to support students during this process and continuously growing in this new environment that we're in. So I just want to thank everyone. I want to thank the community members that have helped support. Just the other day, we have 2 board members, both Lisa Rudley and Aaron Spring, that helped to distribute computers along with other community members. And we distributed approximately about 60, just on, if not a little bit more, on Monday, and we'll continue to do so over the course of this week. So it's really been a team effort, and we want to thank everyone for that. The other part related to this, I think it's important to note that we're in continuous improvement. We continue to reflect, get feedback from families, from staff, from students, and we're continue to modify our work, and we'll continue to do so as long as we're out of the physical building. Big question that's come up is, are we synchronous or asynchronous? The environment we're in right now is asynchronous for the most part, although staff that feel comfortable or committed and have the wherewithal to go synchronous with their students. And we've engaged in some conversations about moving towards that with our unions, and we'll have further discussions over the course of this week as to what maybe next week looks like, specifically related to special education. This is also a time where, pushed and to really continue to think about innovating. And 2 areas that just want to highlight is we're working with Pace University. They have a number of student teachers and individuals that are pursuing degrees in education. And we're working with them to secure them as tutors for students. So more to come on that, but we're excited about the partnership, but also the opportunity to support some students and families through tutoring. And the other is just, it's been fun to work with the PTA. They've worked with, give Miriam Risco a lot of credit in terms of working with our community to create these learning academies for our students, and community members participating in teaching students lessons that are highly engaging and also enriching at the same time. And then food service, as of Friday, we've distributed about 10,000 meals. But actually, as of today, that number is about 13,000 meals. So I want to give, again, credit and support to our food service providers, Stardinio and Alita, for their support and leadership, and everyone else that's helping to support this process. And we've also enriched this by making books available. The OTA has donated a number of books that are brand new texts that are available at our distribution, and we're also looking at ways to distribute those books over the course of the upcoming days and weeks. The other part, and I actually just want to reflect, we have 3 pillars in our district, one involving community partnerships, family engagement as well. This is just an example. Dr. Alm, Ms. Sipos, and community members have been looking at trying to lift some learning for parents as they continue to help and support their child. These are, some offerings. We anticipate this moving forward as it progresses over the course of time, and want to thank those that are providing it. But you can see that it goes from Google Classroom to dealing with stress during this difficult time, trying to respond to the needs of families and supporting them during this process as well. So for those that are watching, we encourage you to participate, and your feedback in terms of learning sessions would be really valuable as we proceed and go forward. But I think it's an impressive list for week 1 of family engagement and professional development for families. And these are just examples of which I referenced before, just the learning academies that are taking place for students. And you can just see a number of community organizations. It's very aligned with the work we do during our when we're in the buildings of community schools, and you can see just how thankful we are for all these outside community organizations that are helping to provide these learning opportunities. So some decisions are starting to be made. I think these are conversations that we're having at the building. This is sort of, in this iteration of, how long will we be in this setting? This is related to grading. That's a big question that's happening, particularly at the high school level. There's a lot of language here, but fundamentally what it comes down to, or at the core, is that students will receive a numerical grade for the third quarter. Outside of that, the quarter 4 is what's still in discussion. But later this week, we anticipate giving some guidance and putting something out to families relative to our decision for grading. And we're trying to balance and learning from what other communities are doing at this point. Everyone's kind of got a different philosophy, but I think ultimately what we want to do is be fair to our students, be fair to staff in terms of, and also keeping in mind not only the academic rigor, but their social emotional component of this in the work. So more to come on this, but we anticipate putting out an announcement regarding what quarter 4 would look like at a later date, hopefully later this week. And then the other part that we're starting to change, and this is again specific to the high school, I want to thank our colleagues. Actually, this is not our chart that we created. We adapted this. Our colleagues in Newburgh and Westbury shared this with us, but I think it's a nice flow chart that they've allowed us to make our own, that kind of shares for families basically the Regents options. Obviously, the Regents will not be administered this year. However, students, in essence, and I guess at the core of this, is if students pass the class, they'll be eligible for a Regents credit. With that said, if they fail, some will be eligible to take it during the summer, take the course over the summer, if they, so that they can be awarded a credit in lieu of passing the exam. We've posted this on our website. And it's also on the high school website as well for others to see. I think I lost the slide. Did I lose the Zoom? Okay. The other, as we proceed, this has been this is a question that I posted in a letter to the staff is, how do we find a silver lining in this darkness? And just want to share, as grim as sometimes this could be, and we certainly want to see a change to back to normal. There are some silver linings in this, and I just want to highlight a few. First of all, there are many, many moments of kindness and charity that we're seeing, and a lot of love that's been spread across, the district and within our community. There's time to it's provided us with the opportunity to reimagine and innovate some of our learning and think very carefully about the way we operate and conduct business in our school district. We no longer ignore the fact that schools do much more than teach. We think that schools bring our communities together. And it also reinforces the fact that that education is an endeavor that we do together with families and schools as a collective group. The other part I just want to address tonight is, because this is a sort of the magical question that community members have asked, staff have asked, students have asked, is when do we return? And actually, it's been just this past weekend, there was a big debate between our mayor, who announced that he was closing the New York City schools, and our governor, who later had a discussion about whether in fact schools would be closed in New York City or not. All that said is we do not know the official date, but for me it's less about when we return, because we'll be ready if the schools were to be open. The bigger question for us is the next slide, Illy, is how we return. When we think about just when that date is how what are the parameters? What are things that we need to consider when that time comes? And we want to start this week, hopefully, if not early next week, to begin having conversations and forming what we'll term as a reentry committee to really think carefully about what that might be. Hopefully it's a plan that, we can put aside, and maybe some of the variables we need to consider and other things we don't. But we want to give ourselves as much time and not have this happen to us at sort of a month before, and then begin planning sort of procedures, cleaning, and other things that need to be considered. We want to make sure that we're very thoughtful and learn from others, more so nationally, that have embarked on what a return looks like for students. So the next few slides just kind of highlight a few of the questions that we want to focus on, and certainly there'll be more. So Ilya, if you want to just show some of the others. And I've alluded to this in other presentations about the social emotional needs of students and staff at the same time. The academic pieces that we want to consider, and there's a lot of questions that we might want to seek to address. Staff culture and their well-being and health, from if we're required to provide social distancing, what might that look like? Does it impact schedule? Does it impact lunch? Does it impact athletics? All those are aspects that we're going to embark on and form a small little committee of educators to begin thinking about this, but with the idea that we can outline some recommendations, vet those recommendations, and should the time come and we need to use them, we'll be ready to implement. The next are just some others, from the finances. One of the questions might be what percentage of the technology that we've provided will need to be replaced? Will there be changes to cleaning and disinfecting protocols that we need to consider? Will that have a budgetary impact on us? Will we, need to purchase masks? Those are all items that we want to begin to engage in and study and prepare for. Should we hear what date schools will need to be open. So that's a coronavirus update and when the status of the schools at this point. And now I'm going to turn over to Alita to give an update on where we are relative to the budget.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to give some, high-level conversation or highlights about the budget as it stands right now. As you know, there's no budget date, no budget vote date. We have been told by New York State ASBO that we should consider waiting until after April 30th before we finalize our budgets. At that time, they believe that the governor will be in a better position to know what how his revenue projections are aligned with actual revenues. So we'll probably be recommending that the budget adoption date be withheld until after April 30th. That will also indicate whether or not there may be any potential for mid-year cuts. With regard to transportation expenses, we're still waiting for formal guidance from the state. As you know, I took down the aid amount that we projected because we don't actually have any expenses. But the fact that we are not paying for transportation expenses is still debatable. Is still being considered by the state as to whether or not we should be paying for transportation expenses, even though services aren't rendered. There are school districts that are paying and there's some that are not, that are using transportation services to deliver meals. So there's still this conundrum as to whether or not we should be paying. So we have to closely monitor that with regard to our revenue and also any projected expenses or surplus that we think we're going to have for this year. With regard to BOCES aid, as you know, I brought that number down too, but in speaking with BOCES and the business official there, their stance is that they're providing they're delivering instruction even during COVID. So we may have to refine that number because again, their contention is that they're delivering instruction and they don't anticipate seeing any reduction in the expenses for the bill that they're sending us. The other thing that we need to consider is strategic use of fund balance. I shared with the board in a weekend update what we project that the fund balance would be as a result of closing, schools closing as early as they did, or schools not reopening. And part of the information that I provided is just an estimate, but we have to think about drawing down on one-time expenses, given the amount of fund balance that we may have left over. We also have to consider a 2-year looking into the next year, not just the following budget year, but the year after that, 21, 22, and think about any TRS or ERS spikes in the rate next year. So we need to consider what we're putting into those reserves, those 2 reserves. And again, we just need to consider avoiding the use of recurring expenses and considering how we're going to use any unrestricted fund balance that we have available. So we know that we're going to have unrestricted fund balance available. Do we leave it at above the 4%, or do we try to keep it at 4%? And with that amount of money, what do we consider doing with the fund balance? Do we put more in TRS reserves? Do we put more in ERS reserves? So these are all questions that we have to consider. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Sanchez. This is just a sales tax, to give you a history of the sales tax revenue that we've had over the past 20 years, 10 years, 15 years.
So as it relates to next steps, specific with the budget, we're going to continue to meet and assess. And April 30th is a sort of a milestone date that we're going to need to consider. That's and Alita made reference to that in the previous slide. We're going to continue to determine needs resulting from the school closures that continues to evolve. Just recently, we were talking about, adaptive types of technology that might be able to support us and support students that we may not need to consider, that we currently don't have, but might need to consider purchasing. And then we hope to finalize some scenarios that the board can consider relative to the budget as we proceed, and give you some options. So we can hopefully bring closure, there soon after the April 30th, if we have enough information. This is just a reminder of our board meetings and what we have sort of scheduled at this point. We may want to actually, just in light as I'm looking at this, just within our meeting with April 29th, if April 30th is a date of sort of an important date, we may want to consider tweaking that date. But that's just me right now as I'm staring at the slides and the date and mentioning April 30th. Next one. Okay, and that's it.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ray and Alita. I just want to remind, if there's anybody in the audience that wants to ask a question, just raise your hand virtually, and when the board is done, the board we're going to open it up for board questions. But if you have a question, just raise your hand and we will display your camera and your audio to ask your question. All right. And now I'd like to open it up for the members of the board to ask questions and thoughts.
Hey, Lisa.
If there's any,
Oh.
Yeah.
I
I
was
was just going to say, if there's a slide that anybody wants you to go back to, we will. Yep. Go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to make a suggestion, which may or may not make sense, but I wonder if it makes sense to first go around and make our comments on the sort of COVID grades and that kind of thing, and then do a second pass for the budget, if that makes sense. Or we, is that, maybe I'll start on the, I guess 2 comments. One is, I don't want to be getting into the whole hoarding conversation that's going on in government and states and all that stuff, but it does seem like we're gonna need masks and thermometers and Chromebooks, and I'm guessing there's already huge backlog of Chromebooks. I'm sure you can't just go buy a Chromebook today, is my guess. And thermometers, I'm guessing we're gonna need a bunch, and masks. I don't think we need, thousands, but we need some. So I don't know. I don't know, I don't know the answer. I just, and I know you're thinking about it. I just want to say, every school district is in the same boat of, they say we can open, but you can only open. I know just last weekend, they said to the essential businesses, you need to provide masks to all your employees, which sounds good if they can find masks. Now,
Right.
presumably the state's buying masks that they'll make available to essential employers and employees. So whether we have to buy them or whether we'll get them from the state, who knows? But anyway, you got that point.
Just if I could, just for a moment, the computers, only because your point's a good one about how long it takes. I think Mike Canna has referenced about a 5-month gap between putting the order in and actually receiving it. So, the sooner we make those decisions as to what we're going to need, we've already worked with him to discuss, just assuming that not every computer will, that we're going to need to consider replacing because of just wear and tear or other things that might need to take place. So we've engaged in that conversation, and also trying to get ahead of, start the timeline about getting computers in hand so that when school does open, we have them in the hands of kids. So I just wanted to add that piece.
Yep. I know, it's gonna be, it's a purchasing mess and all that stuff. I don't know if our printer, our 3D printer can print masks or thermometers, but if we can, we should figure it out. I guess I'm really happy we are putting the grade thing in place. And I know every district's, I think what you have there, resembles what a lot of sounds like, I won't say a lot, a good number of districts on that school board association call are doing to try and be fair to everyone. Create that floor, so if the new setup doesn't work for you, you're not punished for it. But if you worked hard, or even if you kind of got what you got during the pre-COVID era. I've heard some colleges that are making pass-fail an option at the student level. I don't know if that, as I was thinking through it, like it might not work because a student might say anything, I got less than a 90, I'm just gonna make a pass and my GPA is gonna look like I have all A's when it's not. But that's the only other philosophy that I've heard that we don't have in there that may or may not work. So those are just my 2 comments on the non-budget stuff.
I'll go ahead.
Go ahead, Catherine.
I'm really happy to hear that there is movement towards synchronous learning or semi-synchronous learning, however you want to call it. I understand that truly synchronous learning is extremely challenging and maybe unlikely to occur. I know that there are many obstacles to overcome in moving towards a more synchronous way of doing things. And I know that there are a lot of reasons why we think that it might not work, or why it might not be perfect. And I think at this point, everyone is well beyond the realm of trying to make anything perfect. It's more trying to figure out how. Ossining has always been great about trying to individualize education And to the extent that there are elements of instruction where bits and pieces of synchronicity can affect the children who need that in order to excel, I know that everyone is working hard to still bring them that, and I appreciate it. I am so pleased that email was opened up to 3rd and 4th graders. I do have concerns with the Google Slides also are, they seem to be working fairly well. And I personally was very pleased with what was provided this past week. It is incredibly challenging to have a very young child who's never been exposed to Google Slides expected to click on various links and open windows and go back to the slides after they've opened a window and viewed a video. And it ultimately it's resulting in, mommy, what's happening? What do I do? Probably about 35 times to complete like a Google Slides series. So to the extent that that can get looked at, and I know that everybody's looking at it all day long, and that's totally not lost on me. But I think that's the kind of case where a synchronous lesson a couple times a week would make a huge difference. So I think it's going in the right direction, and I'm pleased for that. And I'm happy that it was mentioned, and I know that people are working very hard, so I really do appreciate it. And then, yeah, I guess this notion of preparing for something that is almost impossible to prepare for, to the extent that we can start looking at that is a good way to go forward.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I guess I'll just ask a question in terms of, I know our last meeting, we talked a little bit about special education students, excuse me, and I know that it's been a challenge across the state and all over the country delivering instruction. Ray, can you talk a little bit about the special education students and our English language learners?
Yeah, so we've actually had recent conversations about ways in which we can better meet the needs of our students, disabilities or special education students. We've had conversations with our director of PPS, Maureen Buzang Hill. We've actually engaged conversations even with our Teachers Association about, proceeding and maybe taking it to a different stage, which is, having a hybrid of asynchronous and synchronous. We need to obviously meet the IEP goals, but at the same time, make sure that, the manner in which we provide the instruction meets the goals and we're able to assess the students that we're serving. So I would say that there's more to come in the very near future around this. There's actually meetings taking place Thursday and Friday. They're being scheduled to meet with our special education teachers, related service providers to discuss what we can call it. There's always these phases. So this would be the next phase of their work so we can better meet the needs of our students. I appreciate everyone's patience through this. It hasn't been easy for all of us, our teachers who are, they have the responsibility to teach and provide an education, but they too are, their child's provider at the same time. So it's just a management across the board, and we're all learning a new platform. But all that to say is that, in summary, is that this week we're having conversations, and I would say very soon after there'll be some shifts, and we'll notify families of what that might be.
Okay. Anybody for this first part of the questions? Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, why don't we move into some questions about the budget? Greg, if you'd like to go.
Hang on, I mean, I guess, Ray and Alita, how, do you want thoughts on where our head's at in terms of the budget and tax levies and that kind of thing, or is that the next meeting? I'm fine either way. I just don't know if that's helpful, or you want to wait till you have scenarios.
Sorry, Greg, my internet paused for a minute, so I don't know if you can repeat your statement or
Oh.
question.
Sure. I just was asking if this is an appropriate time to give you feedbacks on where our heads are in terms of budget. I know you don't have updated numbers because things are in flux. So I don't know if there's a ton to comment, but just asking if comments are sort of where our heads at is helpful now, or if you want to wait till next meeting, or when we get to, I don't know if we'll have less flux, but.
Yeah, I would just wait for now. I mean, I think, because of how much is in flux to this point, and then we can try to finalize things. And I think to the extent that we can give you some scenarios to think about too might be helpful. And actually address some of the thinking that, sort of your mindsets at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the two short comments. I mean, one, I do think we talked about this briefly last meeting. I think we really do need to balance the budget with student needs and taxpayer needs, which I know we always do, but I think that's even more critical maybe at the moment, given the unknowns. And two, and just as my own take on things, I know we're talking about this 4.9 million deficit, which I just always feel obligated to point out is more of a budget deficit, not what we likely will have at the end of the year deficit. And after last meeting, there was some community conversation about, we're going to need to find all these cuts. And again, I know things have are changing and static, but I think we need to be sensitive to our conversations, and we're going to have money, a decent amount of money left over at the end of this year. And, I don't see us having to cut anything. Obviously we don't know everything yet, but I just, that's briefly where my head will be when we get to those more detailed conversations.
Thank you.
Okay, want to open it up to other board members? Have any questions? Comments?
I don't really have any. I think it's a weird stage that we're at. So it's not really too many questions that can be answered that haven't already been attempted to be answered already. So I guess I'll just save any further questions for the next meeting, and hopefully we'll have some more finalized answers surrounding some of the decisions that we're going to have to be making.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'll just add, with the conversation with the County School Boards Association and the other directors there, everybody's in a very similar spot. They've socialized. If you get the emails, I think the whole board gets the emails regarding kind of where all the districts are currently. There's another town hall 2 days from now on the 16th at 12 noon. So just all the questions we're grappling with is, no surprises, others are too.
Thank you, Frank.
I just had a quick question regarding the update where it said, you know, if we were to open on this date, we'd have this much over the 4% and you know, so on and so forth. Can you just kind of like delve in a little bit about like what specific line items those savings are coming from? And you don't have to have the answer tonight. I just wanted to know moving forward, like where those savings would be coming from.
A lot of it is coming from the transportation savings, that the money that we haven't spent over the past 6 weeks and going forward. That's where a lot of it is coming from. Some of it is coming from personnel, some of it is coming from benefits, but a lot of it is coming from transportation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'd like to thank everybody, Ray and Alita and Brian and Carrie Ann and everybody for all this work that's been going into it. It's a short, it seems like it is a short time period, 3 to 4, it's been 4 weeks now, right? We're in our 4th week. And the swift and dramatic change that we've all seen in our personal lives, work lives, and school lives is just enormous. And thank you for all this work. And every week I know continues to move forward and shifting to the needs of our students. And sometimes we don't even, and our staff, and we don't even know what the needs are. Every day is a new day. And just the work that's been done across our school and across the state is just quite amazing to even believe that we could be here in such a short period of time. And thank you for all the efforts. And I know there's so many unanswered questions. And I know, Dr. Sanchez, I was going to ask you, I know you're doing those Facebook Lives on every Tuesday. That's really helpful. And I was, and I'm sure there's a lot of questions of when are we coming back and what would it look like when we're coming back? And I'm sure we're all, whomever we're talking to, that seems to be the biggest question. So that I'm hearing, but just thank you everybody for all that everybody's pitching in. It's just not been easy, and everybody's doing the best that they can, and just some amazing things are coming out of it. But while people are really dealing with difficult situations. So without further conversation, I think we should, if there's no more comments, we should move into the business of the board. And then we'll have another, if there's anybody in the audience, which I don't see any attendees, anybody in the audience. I know that I just got a email that somebody couldn't get into the meeting. So we'll have to see what that issue was. But we did put that out in the press release, the link to the Zoom. And I think we can probably, for our next meeting, even put that link in on the website of the upcoming meeting, unless we already do that. But I don't think we do. So maybe for the next meeting, we can put the link on our website as well. And maybe we can put that out on social media as well, like we did the first Zoom meeting we had. And then after, so it doesn't look like we have anybody in the audience, so we can move to the agenda items, and then we'll have an opportunity for more board dialogue after that. Okay? Okay. So I'd like to take a motion to vote on resolution 5.1.
So moved, Diana.
Second.
Okay. 5.1, resolution to approve policy 5422, head lice policy, and policy 5420, student health services, as a second reading. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. And the board members, if you would just unmute yourself. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, moving into special meeting personnel matters. I'd like to take a motion to vote on resolution 6.1 and 6.2.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, 6.1, resolution regarding the rescinding support staff leave of absences. 6.2, resolution regarding professional staff appointments. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. And, okay. Audience recognition. As I said before, we don't have anybody in the audience right now. And I'd like to open it up now for board dialogue to talk about any committee meetings that you've been a part of and any, meetings like Trustee Schnecker mentioned in terms of town hall meetings with any other boards or other organizations across the state. So I'd like to open that up for dialogue. I know we've had a couple of committee meetings since we last met.
I could talk about facility, two things. One, before we get to facilities, just for the board members, if you haven't already, there's that weekly, seems like a weekly NISBA call that they do Saturday around 1, that they then forward out the taped version. Some of the state leaders, they had a governor representative, but it was just a very helpful summary of what's going on and all the decisions that we have to make, that they're thinking about everything when, when are votes going to be, and some of that transportation stuff was talked about. It was all talked about. So if you have time to listen to that, we got an email that was Sunday or sometime with the link to the recording. I think there's one every week. Facilities, Ray, Alita, Frank, Catherine, and I talked last night, I think it was. The moment there's 3 options on the table. I think the board saw the first option, if I remember correctly, related to the library. I guess two things happened. I know Lita and Ray have mentioned that they've been able to try and identify some work we could do this year that was going to be in the capital line that may free up some money for next year's capital. So we kind of get down to how big the library project can be, should be, we want it to be, what are we trying to accomplish? Which I think is, we've heard creating more space, maybe or maybe not, trying to extend, cafeteria space, keeping it a library, creating group meeting space. So trying to balance all those. I don't think we have an answer yet. I think Ray was going to go back and get some more feedback. So there's nothing more detailed yet. I know we all know we have a rapid timeline. So we're going to have, I think it was good, very good conversation that was productive. And I think sooner than later, we'll need to get the full board in the loop. But I don't know if anyone, the rest of you have anything else to add on that meeting.
You want to go, Frank?
No, you can go ahead. I'm sorry, Catherine.
No, I don't actually have much to say. I mean, there's nothing, I think that we're not sort of, I think we're still trying to figure out the mission of the project. And so we're not necessarily in a consensus and are still looking into things and trying to figure out everything from like the budget to what's the overall purpose. And, it may be time to get help from everybody else and sort of figuring all of that out.
Yes, I mean, I guess, Ray, part of the question will be, we should have on an upcoming meeting, it's on some of the agenda to go through this. I mean, I think the things I would encourage kind of people to keep in mind, just, is I recently looked at some numbers of the district where we sit kind of from a building space capacity. And like the high school is probably one of the more cramped buildings, I'll say, in the county. And so just as we're looking at things, and I think this is what the committee's struggling with and trying to figure out, is how do we kind of get more space for a lot of the things that we know programmatically that we'd like to be able to do that we can't. So I think, and part of the struggle is what do you do in the immediate and what do you do in the near term with those lists of projects? So just, to keep in mind, and, I think it's time for probably more board, exposure to all the considerations that are going on and to try and refine direction.
So we do have another town hall. I'm sorry, is that any more on the facilities? Okay. Greg, you were you sat on the town hall call with West Putt Board Association last time, and they skipped a week, and it looks like they have another one coming up this Thursday. I won't be able to attend, and if you're able to attend that would be great. This coming Thursday, that's going to be another with the surrounding area. Our boards in in our region will be on the call again, and I would assume they're going to be discussing all these questions again, and how they're working through some of their e-distance learning.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just add to that. Just that there's been a lot of planning to go into. I think these meetings have been well received, and so there's been a lot of planning going into topics and giving people an opportunity to kind of ask questions. And I think the last two calls, we had 100% participation across all the districts. So I think it's a good forum for dealing with the issues du jour. I mean, I know the special education, delivery instruction, synchronous learning, these are all things that, I know are questions and people are working with at various levels. It's true at Putnam, Northern Westchester, BOCES as well.
Yeah.
So I think they're very timely. Just one thing I'll add to it is that it looks like, the annual meeting, and it will be basically a virtual meeting this year as well. So I think there'll be also, just with the timing of that, there'll likely be some more, it'll be right around budget time. So the meeting may change more from a dinner type meeting to, to the issues that are facing districts, just because things are going to kind of come together quickly here as the governor gives his projections the end of April. If the budgets are really due second week of May in order to make a June timeframe, that's all going to kind of come together quickly. So, and I guess related to that efforts, there's been some of the membership along with the LHEC met with Senator Mayer to basically, they really had kind of two things. Well, actually, they worked on state funding and also federal funding, and it looks like that there are COVID-related expenses that weren't necessarily targeted to school districts, but districts will be eligible for. So there may be more information to come there regarding aid for things like things that, even if we were to do some sort of distance stuff over the summer, there may be funds to do that. So there's just a lot in flux right now, and but I think it's good. The association's been good at, at keeping tap with the school boards, and the LHEC's been doing a good job in keeping in touch with the legislators as things are changing moment by moment. So, and clearly our educators are, and Dr. Sanchez, and, there's a lot to work with in the building. So I think, the more you can participate in this, I know, Lisa, you did one, Greg, it was good to do it too. You did it as well. These things are good because they're giving a lot of direction, for trying to get answers to questions we all have.
Yeah, no, the collaboration and what we learn and what we're sharing, what we're doing is really important, and it's been very helpful. And yeah, from the regional area to the state, it's just really important to keep up with it's a moving target, but it's important that we're doing it. And the associations are doing a really great job at getting answers and clarifying what we don't have answers on, which is also important. So yeah, so thank you, Frank. And Greg, that would be great if you could help us out.
Yeah,
Call.
I have a call at 1. It's probably like a half hour. I think it was 1 to 3, if I remember correctly.
12 to 2. I believe it's 12 to 2.
12 to 2. Okay.
Yeah. All right, so we will hand off the baton to another member.
Yeah, I could do it if needed, but if there is another, I mean, it's a solid. They're not messing around. It's a 2-hour beginning to end. So anyone else wants to do it?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the call as part of the association this go round. So, if somebody else wants to join on, they can certainly be on it, but if not, I can share the update the way, I mean, they give a pretty good, decent, there's a good update that comes out afterwards, but I can certainly raise any questions if anybody can't make it.
Yeah, and we've been participating as from Ossining standpoint. We've been sharing, what we're doing here in Ossining and what some of our questions are. So if you could represent us, that would be awesome.
Right.
So,
And I could potentially, if no one else wants to, I could at least go on the first hour and then drop off and come back. Frank, we could coordinate by text if I'm on, I can give the update.
People have questions, they can, they can send them to me, or, if you're going to join, go ahead and do it. I mean, I can, it's, I don't need to be asking the questions. You can go ahead and I would encourage different board members to get on. I think it's a good chance to connect with other, hear things directly. These are good sessions.
I've attended a couple of the Saturday webinars. Can you explain the difference between the two?
Saturday is the New York State School Boards Association.
Okay.
And Thursday is the Westchester Putnam School Boards Association. And so I think what you'll find on the Saturday ones, it's a little bit more state level. They've invited the governor's Secretary of Education onto those. And so it's a little bit more of a insight into the governor and kind of the collaboration that he's having with the State School Boards Association. West Putt is tailored a little bit more to our region and the unique we're seeing, and the calls are more, I would say, they're more about specific district issues and challenges you're having. So you'll get to a level of detail on those calls a little closer to the district than kind of being up at the state policy level. So, it's good to hear what other districts' challenges have, what successes they're having. Sometimes you get good ideas to bring back. Sometimes it's, being reassured you're not the only ones trying to grapple with, with difficulties. So that's kind of the difference in the two.
I'm happy to do ones after this week. We have our first and hopefully only child's birthday quarantine lunch this Thursday at the time of the call. So, but I can do the following that.
all right. Any other, anything else anybody wants to bring up?
Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES had its annual meeting today. Jennifer Rosen has been nominated as is the one nomination that the board received for a new board trustee for next year, and the budget information should be coming into Lita. Probably has it, or if she doesn't, Lita and Ray will have it, and we'll pass it along to the rest of the board.
And when will that vote be for the Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES?
The BOCES are on the same schedule, so I think
Okay.
it's the April 22nd meeting that every board has to. I think I have to look at the calendar in front of me,
Yep.
but there's a common date that we all have to vote, and so I think
Okay.
that's there hasn't been any motion on that, and because since it's a board vote versus a community vote, the directives have been keep your schedule.
Right, and since we're all meeting and able to review the review the budget and vote, that.
Right.
Okay, seems reasonable. Okay, right. Melissa?
Who has the information for the Westchester Putnam School Board call? Is that something that's disseminated widely, or is one specific person getting that information as far as how to call into
I
that?
thought we were all it looks like I thought we were all getting it, and then in the beginning, board presidents were getting on the call.
Okay.
And then Greg had gotten on the call last week, but I think it's a good idea to rotate so everybody can share and listen. I mean, it seems to be, and Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems to be the board presidents have been on these calls consistently. But I don't see any reason why we can't, rotate. And, it was very helpful. I know Greg said for him to be on the call. So Melissa, if you're available for this
Yeah,
Thursday,
this
that would be
Thursday, I could do this Thursday. I would just need the
Okay.
information.
very good.
I mean,
There'll be plenty
basically,
of weeks.
districts are really, they're trying to limit it because they do go around and, it's conversational. So the call doesn't go on for, 6 hours.
Right.
Basically, the requirement is really, it's one board member from each district. So it doesn't have to be president, a lot of districts it is, but basically it's just one
Right.
representative. So I'll forward the latest email off to the board. And if anybody's not getting these, let me know and I'll make sure that your address and things are correct.
I get the follow-up, I get the briefings afterward, but I know, yeah, so. All right, thanks.
Sure.
Yeah. So that, they just say that, just one board member and then, yep. All right, good. No, it's very helpful. And then you speak for, a few minutes about what's going on and you get some great ideas. And we've given some great, actually, one of the great ideas that we gave in the way beginning was that we were doing surveys regularly with our students right in the beginning. And a lot of the feedback I received on that call was that that's a great idea. And then also some of the boards, I also shared that we, as a board, wrote a letter to our staff and in the beginning, and they were appreciative of that. So, and then there's other ideas that we've shared and they've shared. So, and you'll see that all in the notes. Okay. Anything else? Oh, we have one attendee in the meeting. Let's see. Oh,
No, that was just me. I'm testing it.
okay. Yeah, we thought we had an
Wrong
issue
with
with
that.
the attendees, but I know Trustee Schnecker was able to come in through that part of the Zoom call, and then we moved him over to a panelist. So I'm not sure. There was somebody in the that shared that they couldn't get in, but
We'll fix it.
we'll fix it if that's the issue, or maybe nobody really wanted to attend tonight. So maybe there was an issue with someone's technology. All right, well, I'd like to take, if there's nothing else, I'd like to take a motion to move into executive meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll be moving into the executive meeting right now.
Do we do anything different?
Yes, we leave the meeting and you'll take a look at your emails and there's a call-in number.
Oh, right. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, great. Thanks, everybody.
Billy, you'll resend the number?
I got it. I got
Okay,
it.
all right.
Welcome to reservationless.
Billy, can you hear me? Can you either make me host
Please
or
wait for your conference to begin.
Ray, you gotta mute. Is that mute?
Yeah, I'm gonna get out.
You're gonna want to mute that. You're trying to get us off YouTube.
Yeah, hold on one second.
Okay, Illy, so either click on the thing in the upper left-hand corner and then say stop streaming, or you can make me the host and I can do it